10 top tips to help you pass your upcoming ACCA AFM examination from the examining team themselves. As you can see from the PDF on the screen, I'm going to take you through my tutor analysis of the tips they provided, and if you'd like access to the PDF, just click the link down below where you can download it on there. My name is James, welcome to my channel. Make sure you subscribe for all of my free ACCA and accounting content. And one of the areas that's going to help you to pass your AFM exam is doing mock papers and questions to time. And I'm delighted to say I'm affiliated with LearnSignal, who you can actually access their mock papers, homework packs on there, and a member of their expert team will get the feedback and marks to you within 3 days. As always, for transparency on the channel, if you were to purchase any through the links down below in the description of this video, I'd be entitled to a small commission which goes to supporting the YouTube channel. So thank you as always for all of your support. Check out those mock papers because that is what the examining team mentioned in their notes. We're getting straight into it now. That could be the difference in getting you that pass. What they've done in this document is highlight the pitfalls, the errors, the common areas that candidates make silly mistakes in their exam, and is the difference between getting a 50 plus or sadly having to retake again. So for your notes, or if you're following it, if you've downloaded the PDF, number one, you would not be surprised to see, read the question. It may seem obvious, the first thing they've written on there, but it comes with sufficient question practice, making mistakes as you're going along within your sort of revision phase. And just the key other bit that I highlighted on here was each part of the requirement. When you're going through requirement set, especially at the professional level exams, they'll have words like and in there, and they'll ask you to say calculate and explain. And if you don't see the different styles of questions, and they're very well documented on the practice platform, and you'll see it when you go through mock papers, whatever they throw at you on the exam day, you will have it as an expectation that you're going to have to calculate things and then explain your figures, not sitting on the fence and giving your analysis and recommendation on there. So that is tip number one, read the question, make sure you're answering the correct requirement and not just writing loads of waffle that is not going to score you any marks. The second area, answer the requirement in relation to the specific scenario. So the key word for your notes on there, be specific in your answers. They've even put it in bold, as you can see on the screen, doing it on a case by case for the particular company that you're set in your exam. So you've got to be thinking, what type of industry are they working in, products or services on there. And these are not my words. Look at the ones in the document provided by the examining team. You've got to put points down in your answers that are relevant, that apply to the scenario. And students who just simply learn points, or they're very generic, or they can remember what was in their sort of lectures or core text on there, you're going to get credit. You've demonstrated you know what it is, 1 mark or so, but it's not relevant to the specific case and the specific scenario. And that again is one of the differences in you being a student in the AFM exam, because it's got about a 45% pass rate to get you into the 45% to pass it. So be specific in your answers, relate it back to the scenario, and the examining team and the markers are going to love you for it on there. Number three, as you can see on here, inadequate knowledge. It goes with the territory, as you would expect. Understanding the whole syllabus, everything can be tested, but it's having that depth of knowledge that you can understand the calculations, the narrative parts. And say, for example, in your earlier financial management exam, if you got maybe 50 to 59, I would highly recommend that you check out the technical articles of both financial management and advanced financial management, just to bolster that sort of technical knowledge and to really home in on areas that you're a bit weak on, so that when you hit the lecture stage and going through the study notes, it'll help you to build up that confidence, because some of the topic areas within the advanced financial management exam, investment appraisal, mergers and acquisitions, risk and return on there, all of these different areas along with hedging are just absolutely paramount that you understand the concepts, how to calculate it, and explaining your point, which we'll come on to in a moment. So that was number 3 for inadequate knowledge. Don't think you can cut corners and question spot. We then move on to area number 4, the examining team have highlighted, which is balance between calculations and narrative. Because my life is so fun, I read through the external examiner's report, so you don't have to. You can also check out that video on the channel. And lots of students they just sort of think or assume that if they get the majority of the calculations done right, that's going to really sort of anchor them through and get them enough marks to just get over the line and get the 50 plus on there. You can see from the external examiner's comments on here, it's not sufficient to just focus in on the numerical parts. And if you read through that external examiner's report from the previous sitting, it's the narrative questions, it's the professional skills marks where students just literally throw the marks away. They don't go into enough detail, they're not specific in their answer, and they don't write enough on there. So getting that balance between the calculations and narrative, having an attempt at mock papers, specimen exams, doing it to time under conditions, and whether you use, say, the Learn Signal platforms with those mock papers or you mark it yourself, you've got to think like you are the AFM marker and be super, super, super harsh on yourself, because they will be when it comes to your exam, and it's getting that expectation set. Just have a look at the mark scheme and then see which areas you picked up on and if you went into enough detail, particularly in the narrative questions, and you've also laid out your calculations effectively. Tip number 5 is take account of the available marks. And you think, well, your students must have done so many exams by now that when they see an 8-mark question, they must think in their head, right, 8 marks, that's probably going to be 2 marks per point. So I've got to write 4 decent points, which means 4 paragraphs, and the paragraphs itself have to be maximum 3 sentences, possibly 4 depending on the question, but definitely no more. And therefore I've got a chance of getting 8 out of 8. And you can see from the examining team, students aren't writing the appropriate length for the number of marks. They're not saying, and my sort of usual rule of thumb is 1 paragraph should be made up of about 3 sentences, make the point, explain why, and then really give a few more details linking back to the scenario and maybe some calculations you've done, or maybe reference something from the scenario or use the keywords from the requirement. Doing that is going to give you the chance to get possible 2 marks, maybe 1 if you just missed the point on there. But lots of students will just write a whole page on there and just think, I think there's about 8 marks in there. It again comes with question practice, getting the right feedback, and getting into the habit of writing, here's my first paragraph, 3 sentences or so, leave a gap, next paragraph, leave a gap, next paragraph, and doing that per paragraph should be 1 to 2 marks on there, and base that taking into account the available marks set in the requirement. Tip number 6, professional skills. Oh my words. So important now. 20 marks on your exam. I've put the 4 areas on there. For your notes, communication, analysis and evaluation. AFM students tend to do the best on those because they get practice laying out the questions, then explaining their answers. But again, if you look through the external examiner's reports, it's always skepticism, commercial acumen, and really challenging what you've been set in the requirement. Is it unrealistic? What assumptions were made? The implications? Understanding what's going on. And the sort of thing that goes through my head that I had when I was an ACCA student, and when I failed, sadly, my professional exams on the first time, it was a case of I just didn't go into enough detail. And you have to go in with the mindset that in the exam, there are going to be things that are going wrong. Something is going wrong with this business or scenario, profitability, cash flow, whatever it may be. And the skepticism comes into it, where a great phrase for your notes to get down is, I always say to myself when I'm reading something through now, with the past paper question is, hang on a second, like, what's going on here? Like, hang on a second, it just gets you thinking and questioning. And if you pose those questions to the marker, they're going to absolutely love you for it on there. But check out the professional skills in the mark schemes. And if you do any mock papers, you've got to allocate, key thing for your notes, there are 10 professional skills marks in section A, 5 marks for professional skills in both of your section B, so that is the split between the 20. So 10 in section A, 10 in section B, but the section B is split up 5 and 5 for the 2 questions actually analysed on there. But skepticism, commercial acumen are the ones which students really do not pick up on the marks in their AFM exam. Structure of calculations, clear, logical, easy. That's where it's again going to come down with practice on the ACCA practice platform. Please note these down, because this is from the AFM examining team, that for structure of calculations, and these are the key topic areas that are going to come up on your exam. One of them will definitely on there. Investment appraisal, hedging questions, so that involve currency, and having a pro forma for those, along with potential acquisitions. Those are the 3 areas you can see highlighted as key topic areas for you to get down. Along with that, making sure it is clear, logical and easy, referencing the cells, showing the marker where you've got the figures from, the percentages, any assumptions, and last but not least, not overlooking those actual formulae that you're given in the sheet provided on the exam day. So you've got NPV on there, IRR, and you've got to be going through all of those and knowing how would you lay it out in a pro forma on the exam day, because one area, such as maybe WACC, will come up, and you need to be prepared to make sure that you understand the platform, how you're going to lay it out effectively. Like with WACC, you've got the value of equity, value of debt, cost of equity, cost of debt, and then making sure, of course, you get the correct answer, because you're then going to have to interpret it as well. So that's number 7, structure your calculations. And like with WACC, when you've got the answer, providing advice and making a recommendation is your tip number 8. So key terms to get down. They will put in your exam in the requirements, either advise, recommend, or evaluate. So coming to your actual discursive answers, discussing the factors, but at the end, they want some advice, some recommendation. Go into detail on there and justify it. It doesn't matter what figure you have. It's based on your calculations. It's called the own figure rule. That say, for example, if the NPV answer was 250 and you got 1099 on there, you would still interpret it that it's a positive NPV. They should go ahead with the project. They should still be looking at alternatives for the use of capital. All these sort of little variables comes with practice, doing more and more questions, but picking up on those key terms of advise, recommend, and evaluate. For your tip number 8, providing advice, making a recommendation, and demonstrating your AFM knowledge, to be honest with you. Number 9, explain. Don't just state an issue. The marker wants you to demonstrate your knowledge. Look how they put it in bold on there for why. Be specific, add substance to your points on there, back it up, apply your knowledge. The examining team is keen to hear your reasons why. They want to hear why on there. It's that understanding, knowledge of financial management applied to the scenario and going into as much detail, not sitting on the fence and giving your answer, actually explaining why to the issue that will be set. So have a look back at some of your practice questions that you've done and say to yourself, have I explained that in sufficient detail on there? But that is tip number 9, explain an issue. Don't just state it and go into detail as to why on there. Tip number 10 is all about timekeeping. Spending too long on section A is what happens to so many AFM students. If you have a look at the external examiner's report, it's one of the first things they say in there. Students are spending probably about 2 hours on section A, way too long on there. You've got to plan your time effectively, and that comes down to question practice on the practice platform, doing mock papers under time conditions, making mistakes, fair play, but I would rather make those mistakes in the exam and know that before the exam, should we say, what I want to do on the exam day is answer 100 marks and not be some of the students that answer 75, 80, 85. And if they do get an answer down, it's not sufficient detail on there. So tip number 10, timekeeping. Do those mock papers, practice paper questions, specimen exams to time under exam conditions. And a little bonus tip at the end from the examining team for number 11, revise, practice and review. For any student who's resitting AFM and watching up until this point, or if you just want a bit of Friday night fun reading, have a look at the examiner's report. so helpful for picking out areas where students have made mistakes. I'll link that video at the end of this one where you can check it out, so click it on there. I just go through the key bits and it will just be some of the points we've talked about on here and going into a bit more depth. But if you are struggling with certain topic areas, there's a read the mind of the marker on there, which is really helpful to saying this is a student who would have failed this question, this is a student who would have passed, and it gives you perspective to the detail you need to go into. And we've touched on before those technical articles, study support resources. Make the most of it on there so that you're in the 45% that are going to pass your AFM exam. The last thing I can say is you can see at the bottom, good luck with your AFM exam. I hope you found today's video helpful. I've left a couple of other videos up at the top, so make sure you click one of those, check them out. It's only going to be helpful to get you that pass for the AFM exam. And click the links in the description below to access the homework packs, books, mock papers, and the PDF to get you over the line for your 50+ in the marks. So best of luck, give a massive like on this video, and I'll see you on the other side for another AFM video now. So thank you very much.